All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to come to the end of the Reign of Terror. We're going to look at exactly what that was. So, the objective today, we're going to analyze why the Jacobians and Robespierre, why would they want to execute more people quickly? We're going to be looking at that, okay? Then we're going to examine the significance of shutting down churches. Why did they do this? What's the purpose of that? Things like, things of that nature. And lastly, we're going to create an argument on whether Robespierre thought that he might actually be appointed the next, king, ruler, president, whatever France was going to pick after the revolution, or I should say during the revolution as well. So let's go ahead and go to your warm up. All right, so here's your warm up. I know I have a picture and a couple questions for you, but this is a little different. This is something we're going to be doing um, off and on for the next month or so. It's the Lpac Questions. Okay, so this one asks you, think about a time when you were a child. How has your life changed from when you were a child to now as a teenager? Okay, what specific things have changed? So don't be vague. Don't be like, I've grown. Well, obviously, but we're talking stuff like, things you watched when you were a kid to now. What's the difference? The way you saw the world from when you were a kid till now. There's experiences you've gone through since then. How has the world changed in your eyes? Do you still have like the same like you look up to the same type of people you did when you were younger to now? Um, like how has your life changed? Okay, so take a minute or two and think. What are some big things that have changed since you were like 6 years old till now? Okay, and again, do not be vague. Do not put like I was tiny, now I'm big. I was thin, now I'm bigger. No, that's you're not gonna get the credits for this, okay? If you do that, okay? Be specific, and again, don't be like height, don't put weight. No, think of something more, okay? Did you hate school when you were younger? Now you have at least a little bit of love for it. Things like that, okay? So take a minute, think about it, write your responses, okay? Um, since this is an LPAC question, you'll give yourself like 5 minutes to write this stuff out, okay? So get your phone, put a timer on, 5 minutes, okay? Again, take a minute or two, think about it, and then start writing. Once that timer goes off, there you go. That's your time, okay? And again, we'll be doing this more for the next month or so, okay? So put the timer on your phone, pause the video, and go ahead and get started because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so here we go with the notes. The revolutionary armies were set up to control rebellious cities because, again, some cities fell along with how the revolution was going, and some people were like, okay, now you guys are going too far. And they kind of went against the grind of what was happening in the country. So, like the city of Lyon, they rebelled, and basically all 1,880 people were executed. The problem is this: they executed people like Marie Antoinette, King Louis XVI. They chopped their heads off, showed them off. People are like, "Yay!" Right? Problem is the guillotine took too long if they were going to kill a lot of people. They averaged about 13 people an hour. And you have to remember this. It got so bad because they kept chopping people's heads off, chopping them off, that the blades actually got a little dull. And sometimes when the metal came down, it actually like went like halfway through and didn't complete the whole job. So imagine this big old metal chunk coming down full force, and it like basically cuts off like half your neck. You can still feel that. So all they have to do is like bring it back up, like, oh, it didn't do it, guys. Lift it up one more time, and they be pulling it, pulling it, pulling it, and the whole time they're doing that, this big old chunk of metal's coming out of your neck just to go up and do it again, um, to finish the job. From all the research I've read, the worst it took was 3 times. They dropped the metal piece, the blade down. It cut the dude's like a third of the way. They did it again, didn't chop off the whole way. It just went almost all the way. And then they finally had to do it one last time. So you imagine that person suffering through that. So what they decided to do was go bigger. And they decided to use these things called grape shots. Now, there's a picture of it on the bottom. They're basically huge, solid metal balls, and they basically just put them in these cannons type of things and just shot them at the people. Um, and the bodies fell. They were near a big old mass grave, and they just threw the bodies in. If you look at that picture on top, that is one of those iron balls that just went right through someone's skull, and you can see it's like a clean shot. So yeah, these things would just and hit people in the head, the heart, legs, whatever, you know. So yeah, it was more of a scene of a more quick, effective way to kill a lot of people instead of the guillotine, you know, things like that. People of all classes, not just the rich and the powerful, but also the peasants, were being killed during this reign of terror. They basically, some research was done, and they basically found out that the clergy and the noble people, of all the people killed during the reign of terror, only 15% of those people were actually the nobles. The other 85% were the common people, the people that were supposed to be this whole revolution was for. Those people are dying, 85% to 15. Um, Now the thing is, the people in charge, the guys who were executing all these people, they're telling all these other people who were not being executed, hey, don't worry, hey, don't worry. This is gonna end soon. This is only temporary. We're only getting rid of the people who are the undesirables in our country, you know. So don't worry, we'll stop soon. It'll end, you know, because let's say there's a 50,000. We kill all 50,000. Hey, that's it. It's over. That's not the case. So here's your first question. If you had to choose, if they basically caught you and they say, hey, we're going to execute you, you can either go for the guillotine or the grape shots. Which one do you think would be the better one? Which one would you choose? And you don't know, again, you don't know the guillotine, you don't know if it's sharp or not. The grape shots, you don't know if there are going to be a ton of people who might be, you might get shot in the chest and be struggling there, or you might be just like one of 10 people, so you're going to take a shot of it really quick. You don't know what's going to happen for either one. So knowing that, which one do you feel is the kind of worst one to get? Okay, or it's a better one. Pick your poison again. Sorry. So which one do you think would you choose? The guillotine or the grape shots? Okay, so pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so Robespierre called for a new republic of virtue. And he basically looked in the past and said, you know what? Those Romans back in the day, they had it all down. They knew their life was better. You know, we should have a life like that. You know, we should strive to be like they were back in that time. And one of the things you have to remember that really the Romans did, and a lot of civilizations had realized is when you have an educated people, citizens, they tend to be good citizens, you know, because they know the difference between right and wrong. This, you do this, this is going to happen to you. You know, they know what their rights are and things like that. So he was like, yeah, a good education equals good citizens. Okay. What they tried to do was primary education for everyone. So basically, like elementary school, middle school, that type of education. Everyone should get that for free, right? Everyone should get that. You should know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, basic algebra, things like that. They're like, that's the kind of stuff you need to know. How to write, you know, what adjectives are, you know, conjunctions and things like that. Excuse me. The other big thing that happened was they abolished slavery in all the French colonies, all the islands and things like that. They said, okay, no more slavery. Slavery's just horrendous. The French people know what it feels like when somebody who's more powerful takes advantage of them. So they're like, why would we want to do that to these people? You know, they're no, they don't deserve that. So that's why they got rid of slavery. Okay. The other thing they did was price control. Basically saying, hey, the price of food is way too expensive. Let's bring that price down here. No higher than this. Same thing with fuel. When I mean fuel, it's not like gasoline, it's like kerosene. You know, this is stuff that was used to light up the lanterns and things like that. And in clothing as well. You know, clothing, hey, was way, way too high. You know, basically the only thing people could afford were like rags. You know, so they're like, no, no, cotton and things like that. You know, so costing this much, bring it down here, so that everybody could get that. Thing is, sounds good, right? In reality, that's not a good thing to have when they have price control. Okay, everything was considered quote unquote a luxury, and there was no price control on those items. Here's a problem with education. First thing that popped up: not every town and city gave free education for all. You know, and the government really had no way to enforce that. You know, and on top of that, the price control to say, hey, bread only can cost, let's say, $5 max. There's little towns and all around and little farm places and some of that where they didn't listen. They kept the prices relatively high, and the government has so much going on, and everyone's like going every which way that there's no way that to they could implement, make sure that hey, this little town, this little town, this little town, this little town, all over France um, provides free education, has a price control on the food and things like that. So that's where some troubles were happening. And on top of that, women were like, you know what? We've been with y'all since the beginning. We're the one who got King Louis XVI out of his palace to come back to Paris. We've been doing a lot, you know, and they were starting to be like, you know, we are part of this country too, so we deserve some rights as well. And they started demanding rights as just as much as the men were. All right, so the women are coming out now. They're feeling the power. So here comes your second question. What kind of demands do you think women of France wanted? Okay, now remember, you have to remember this. They are seen as basically second class citizens. They were seen, not heard. You know, women had really no rights. You know, very, 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 very little. Their job opportunities were very small. Um, Legal rights when it comes to their husbands were basically low. You know, and again, as for the country in whole, they were seen as second class citizens. Like men were the top class, you women are down here. So, what kind of rights, you know, what kind of demands you think they would want? You know, so think of maybe two, three rights you think that they feel they would want or that they deserve. Okay, so take a minute, think about it, write your response. Okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So most men at that time in France believed that women should not participate in several things. There's two main things. One was politics. They believed a woman should not be a congressman, senator, things like that. Politics is too up here for women to understand. You know, there's so much that's going on to make deals and things like that, and you know, negotiating and diplomacy, this type of stuff women don't know about. That's how they saw women. The other thing was military. You know, they saw that it made a gun fires, women are going to be like, oh my God, and start running away and things like that. You know, uh, that's the way they saw and viewed women, that they couldn't handle politics. And when it comes to a fight, they'll run, you know. So that's how they viewed women back at this time. So at a convention, some people wanted to actually de-Christianize France. Now, what does that mean? That basically says, hey, get rid of religious stuff. They viewed religion as it encourages superstition rather than reason. People would rather be like, oh well, you know what? If I'm sick, I just I could just pray and my illness will go away, as opposed to going to a doctor and getting medication for that kind of stuff. So those people are like, those religious people, they focus more on faith and not more on science and reasoning. So as a kind of a way to get religion out, they actually did things like take away the word saint from streets. So a street named St. Philip was now just called Philip Street. St. Andrew, no longer called St. Andrew, it's just Andrew Street. Churches were looted. They were looted. Some were closed. Funny thing is, marriages still went on. The priest would have the marriage either outside the church, at a park, in the woods somewhere, someplace, and yeah, they would still do marriages. But as for having mass and things like that, no. Notre Dame, the famous Notre Dame, which is in that picture right there, um, was deemed a temple of reason. They didn't want to tear it down. They didn't want to do anything to it because, again, it's a beautiful church. So they just said it's a temple of reason. Believe it or not, even the calendar changed. Um, Years were not numbered based off the birth of Jesus. You know, um, they were more now towards the French Republic. So September 22nd, 1792 is known as day one, okay? Because again, it's the first day of the French Republic and it's the autumn equinox, okay? This is where um, the days is basically even in the fall, and there's another time in the spring in the equinox, and then of course there's winter and summer. Winter is when uh, the sun is out the least, and the summer equinox is when the sun's out the most. Okay. Now Robespierre, he felt that most French people would not accept the de-Christianization of France because a lot of the people, remember there's 26 million of them. I mean, maybe 80, 90% were Catholic, which is a splinter group of the Christians. So he's like, this probably will not work. This will upset a lot of people, and it did. September 1794, the French army had over 1 million soldiers. All right, at the time, it was the biggest army in Europe, and it did push back some invaders because some people saw this whole revolution as a way to, oh, they're busy fighting amongst themselves, killing off their leaders, their rich people. Maybe we can attack, France and get some land for ourselves. And some people tried. Some countries tried. Germany tried. Spain, I believe, tried. Um, but France was able to push them back. So before the revolution, the king ruled the army and told them where to go. He's like, hey, I want you guys to go here. I order you guys to go there. Things like that. Now with the French Revolution, the French army was ruled by the people. So until the people said, you know what, yeah, go to war, they couldn't go to war until the people said so. So when other countries like Germany and Spain and all them try to take some land, then the people were like, no, 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 you need to back them off. And that's what the army did. So they listened to the people, and instead of a committee or one person, a king, queen, things like that. And this takes us to our next question. Do you think that a nation's army should listen to the people or a single person in charge. And why do you believe this? So think of good things that could happen as well as bad things. I know it's easy to say, oh yeah, let the people choose. But do people always agree on everything? Think about that. Some people say might yes, some people say no. How are you going to resolve that conflict? Is the enemy going to be just sitting there going, well, have you guys decided? Are they going to do that? Probably not. So, again, it should not take you 2 seconds to write this. Think about it. What are some good things and bad things might happen if we let everybody have to choose whether we use the army or not, as opposed to a single person? And think of the good things and bad things of a single person being in charge of an army. Okay? So, think about it. Pause the video. Okay? Write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So, summer of 1794, the army had defeated their foreign foes. Basically, anyone who tried to take over any part of France, they were able to fight them back. Still, inside the middle of France, the reign of terror was still going on. Thing is, some people felt it wasn't needed, but still it went on. And Robespierre was determined. He was telling the people, we still need these gatherings. We still need to get these people because we need to get rid of all the corrupt people in France. These people are destroying our country. They're trying to destroy it. We can't let them. We need to find them, get them, and get rid of them. So in June 1794, I'm going to kill this word. The law of 22 Prairial, I believe that's what it's called. I probably killed it, but that's what it's called, I think. It was passed. What it basically did was give Robespierre more power to basically arrest and execute enemies of France, and the revolution. So now instead of having a trial, gathering information, now it's basically him going, arrest that person because we heard this and this and that about that person, and execute him. Before he needed to make sure this person did this or said this. Now it's more like, we heard this, you're being accused of this, that's all we need. I have the authority to get you and execute you. Here's the thing. The people from the National Convention decided to act because they were like, he's going to look at us next. He's going to be if he has no reason really besides, oh, I heard this or somebody said you did this. If that's all he needs to execute people, he's going to come after us. He's going to come after the top people just like him, or people who are at the same level as him or just below. Because then, hey, he has power. He might feel paranoid and get rid of them, or he might see this equal as, oh, they're going to try to take over my spot. I'm going to get them before they get me. So people kind of started fearing Robespierre, like, this guy is getting too chingon and getting too powerful, too much. Again, power is on his side. So we need to do something. So the convention gathered enough votes to arrest and condemn Robespierre. And if I remember right, this document right here on the side, you see, it's actually the kind of warrant thing to get him, if I remember right. So July 28th, 1794, Robespierre is placed in the guillotine and he is executed. His head is chopped off. And right when that happens, it's just a domino effect. The Jacobians, the people who had that power over the Girondins, they were chingon for a while. Now that Robespierre gone, their boy is gone, their power fizzled away, and the middle class people basically took over. The law of the 22 Prairial was repealed, it went away, and everyone who wasn't executed yet, who were still prisoners, they were released. The powers of the Committee of Public Safety, the group that Robespierre was in charge of, they were basically diminished. They were just dissolved, and the National Convention people basically took over. The Reign of Terror is, to historians, over because he was the one who had that, who was doing all the killing and stuff like that, in charge of that. So when he died, basically the Reign of Terror ended. Churches reopened, a new constitution was created. Now, in order to prevent any more type of taking over and kind of, another group coming up, the convention basically set up two legislative bodies. So one group could not get powerful than the other one. There was a lower house and an upper house. The lower house had 500 people representing the country. These guys' job was to create laws. They would think of laws, create them, hear what's going on around the country, and write up laws. The upper house, which was about 250 people, these were the guys who looked at the laws and said, yes, this is okay, we're cool with this, or no, this is unfair law, it favors one group over another, things like that. So that's what their job was. One was to create the laws, and the other ones were to say yes to the laws or no to the laws. Now, here's my next question to you. Do you think Robespierre was a corrupt politician person consumed by power? Or do you think he was just a guy who was really honestly trying to get rid of the enemies of France and trying to make the country better? But it's just made it, the way everything fell down, the way it played out, it just made him look like a bad guy. What do you think? Okay. So take a minute, write your response, okay? Because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. And now we've come to your exit ticket. Remember, you're going to answer just one of these questions. Pick one that you feel that you can answer best. Okay? So the first question asks you, what are some possible reasons why the Jacobians and Robespierre would want to execute more people quickly? It's one thing to say, hey, we want to get rid of our enemies, but why so quickly? What's the big old rush? What do you think? What could be some possible reasons why they want to execute so many people so quickly? Okay. The second question is, why do you think shutting down churches would cause a lot of people to turn on Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety? Why would that be such a big thing, to close down churches and things like that? Okay. So think about it. Write your response. The last one is, do you think Robespierre thought he might be France's new king, ruler, president? Why do you think this? So do you think with everything how it was going, that people were giving him more power and things like that, that he would be like, you know what? I might be the next king. I might be the next ruler, president, governor, prime minister, whatever you want to call it, of France. Do you think that thought ever passed his mind? That's what the road was leading him to? Yes, no, why? Why do you believe that? Okay, so right when you're finished with this lesson, make sure your name's on the front of the page, okay? Because that's it for this lesson. Hopefully you guys learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this, okay? So you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later, all right?